So, it's one of the most essential tools in medicine, the blood test, but the procedure is unpleasant, inconvenient, expensive, and old. It's been done the same way since the 1960s. This key diagnostic tool was ripe for disruption and a next-generation makeover, so to speak. And that's just what our next guest is doing with Theranos, the revolutionary company she founded with her Stanford tuition money after dropping out at age 19. We got a glimpse of her mission and motivation at the Most Powerful Women Summit a couple months ago, and we're so excited to learn more today as she joins Fortune's Patty Sellers for our final conversation. Please join Patty and the founder and CEO of Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes.
This is incredibly exciting for several reasons. I had basically never heard of Elizabeth Holmes until we did this in June. This CEO is out for blood. And we did not discover, but we were the first to put on the cover and write a major story about this amazing woman next to me. Before we talk about what Elizabeth Holmes has done and what Theranos is, we have a little announcement, a very cool thing. Elizabeth is getting an honor that is actually being announced officially tomorrow, but Elizabeth is getting the Horatio Alger Award. She is the youngest person to ever get the Horatio Alger Award, since the Horatio Alger Award was invented in 1947? In 1947. So, Elizabeth, it's a big deal. Why is it a big deal to you?
Well, I appreciate that. It's a really big deal to me because it's an opportunity to connect with so many young people, especially in classrooms across the country, and especially with my background, little girls who hear a lot of people come in and talk to them, but maybe don't get to hear from, I consider myself, young women who have really pursued science and engineering and business and have the opportunity to talk with them about what's possible and what we can do and the pursuit of excellence in science and engineering especially. And that, yes, that's something that's cool and something that they can excel in, and share a little bit of my experience as a little girl growing up in this country, and what we have the privilege of being able to do in this country.
So, Elizabeth, before you go on, I think it's important to tell this crowd what you do and what you have done. This is Elizabeth's second public live interview. The first was at the Most Powerful Women Summit in October. So Elizabeth, what have you done and what is Theranos? And I'd like you to explain it maybe the way you'll explain it to those young girls as you travel the country talking with elementary school students.
Okay, that's a challenge. You know, if you look the word diagnose up in the dictionary, it says to determine the onset of disease from its signs and symptoms, right? So you're figuring out that someone's sick by the fact that they have a symptom. You're figuring out that someone has cancer by the fact they have a tumor in them, right? But that's too late in the disease progression process to be able to do something about it. And Theranos means detecting the onset of disease in time for therapy to be effective. So being able to see the onset of disease in time to be able to do something about it. And we spent a lot of time thinking about that, thinking about how could we help to create a world in which people don't have to say goodbye too soon. And fundamentally got into laboratory testing because lab data drives 80% of clinical decision making in the context of how a physician is able to take care of a person. And if you can make lab data accessible really early in the disease progression process, so you're not figuring out that you're already really, really sick, then you can begin to make it possible to intervene in time to do something about it. So our work is in making lab data accessible, and we've done that by making it possible to do any lab test from a tiny drop of blood from a finger, instead of having big needles stuck in your arm and tubes of blood taken out, and by making it possible for every lab test to be affordable for every person, no matter how much money they have, and accessible in locations that are convenient. So we've built what we call our wellness centers, which are our service centers inside of pharmacies, and starting in Walgreens, now in Arizona, so that people can go get a test done after work or on a weekend and begin to engage in this process of getting information about their bodies, which can change their life.
The way we described it in the story is 1/100th to 1/1000th the amount of blood that you would normally need to give blood. Pain-free, quicker, cheaper, and you can do all sorts of tests. Theranos is a combination of the word therapy and diagnosis. All sorts of tests on that single drop of blood.
That's right.
So Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford after 1 year at 19 to start this company. And Elizabeth, it actually started out in 2003 as a different idea, a wearable patch to monitor and transmit blood information to doctors, right? Mm-hmm. How did it get from that to this? Was there a major fork in the road where you could have gone one direction and you went the other?
I think there's a billion forks all the time, and you have a vision, you have a mission. For me, it was finding what I'm just so incredibly passionate about in life, and when you find that thing, then it's a question of going down 1,000 different paths to get to your end point, no matter how you have to go to get there. And so our patch was our first embodiment of an idea of how you could do this type of testing to realize the same dream, which is being able to intervene in time for therapy to be effective. And the course of building this business has been about figuring out at every fork in the road how to get a step closer to that vision and to that dream. And when something doesn't work, or it takes too long, or it's too complicated, changing it so that you can get to that end game.
It's actually really interesting hearing you talk about this way, because as you're saying this, it is enforcing in my mind that you did not start with an idea like, oh, we can make a wearable patch that will do this, or we can draw blood much more efficiently. You actually started with a very ambitious mission, which is to change the way diagnosis and therapy takes place.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think people talk a lot about starting companies, and I'll talk with people sometimes and they'll say, oh, I want to start a business, and my question is always, why? Because there's got to be a mission, there's got to be a reason that you're doing it, that no matter how hard it is, you want to keep doing it over and over and over again because you love it. And for me, what I want to spend my life doing is seeing a change in our world in which people don't have to go through what they go through today when you say goodbye too soon. And so that was what starting this company is about. And I really believe that building a business is a vehicle for making a change in the world. And And so then it's a question of operationalizing it and tuning it and changing it and being really good at change so that you can get to that end game, because nothing ever works out the way you think it's going to. You just have to leverage those moments and turn them into what you want them to be. Right?
So tell me if I have these numbers right. Elizabeth has raised more than $400 million. The company is valued at, the company that she started at 19 is valued at $9 billion. You own over 50% of it, right? Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
When we did the story in June, you had 500 employees.
Yeah.
What do you have now?
We're over 700.
And what are we going to see in terms of Theranos's expansion over the next year?
Yeah. We pursued a model in introducing these wellness centers that the Walgreens CEO very well referred to as crawl, walk, run. And we're moving from the crawl phase into the walk phase. And it's been really important for us to develop and fine-tune a model that is replicable and scalable, because access for every person means rolling this out ultimately within 5 miles of every person's home. So we've started in Arizona as a place to build this model, and we're now working to replicate that as we expand throughout the country. And for us, it's really been about making sure that the experience is wonderful. I mean, lab testing is not something that people generally describe as something they love. And we want to change that. We think that it should be, because it's the first step in getting the most valuable information about yourself, about your body, about your health that you need to live the way you want to live. And so, I've talked before about the fact that the thing we're most proud of is when someone comes out of one of those wellness centers and says, "That was so fun," right? And the more we can do that, the more we can begin to engage and connect with people. So the next year for us is about engaging and connecting with more and more people to help them understand that there is all this information about their bodies that is accessible and should be accessible to them and by them, so that they can begin to change their life. And yeah.
You're in many Walgreens you're in about 40 Walgreens now across the country, most of them in Arizona. The Palo Alto Walgreens, if anyone here lives or is in around Palo Alto, go in there. Go get your finger pricked. It will not hurt. Yeah. And the results also come back very quickly. Yeah. What are we going to see in terms of, are you able to say, like, in 5 years, how many Walgreens you might be in, or how many drugstores across the country you might be in?
Sure. So there's 8,200 Walgreens nationally. Mm-hmm. That would put us within 5 miles of every American's home. Uh-huh. And that's what we're working to do.
And is that the plan, to be in every Walgreens within the next 5 years?
Certainly to be within 5 miles of every person's home, yeah.
Who has a question? Back here in the last row, please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Karen Sauter from Google. My question is 500 employees and a $9 billion valuation. We all want to know if you're hiring. I'm teasing. No, seriously though, are you running into any regulatory pushback, or I would say like traditional medicine pushback, as 23andMe and others that have begun to change the space? Are you seeing any of that yet?
Well, this is a really important area to us. So we defined our mission as access to actionable information at the time it matters. And the information is only actionable if it is of the highest level of integrity, right? Highest level of quality, which means we've done a huge number of studies over the last 11 and a half years to get to the point in which the data could be of that quality. And so we have been, for example, proactively submitting every single one of our tests to FDA because we believe that it's so important in terms of a quality stamp. I mean, I think about it as my mom goes to get a test in one of these locations. I want to know every single time that that data is flawless no matter what. And so our approach has been to embrace regulation because we see it as critical in realizing our mission.
We have a question up here. The mic is coming.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Navrina Singh from Qualcomm. You're clearly very passionate about changing the world through your new company. But I was wondering, what keeps Elizabeth up at night if you sleep? And how do you go about tackling that?
Well, I don't sleep very much.
How many hours do you get a night on average?
I sleep about 4 hours. Yeah. I feel like the luckiest person in the world every day because of what I get to do. And right now, building this company is about building people and really investing in building the people from within our company. So I spend as much of my time as humanly possible focusing on getting and building the right people because that's how we realize this mission and how we realize this dream. So I don't think I could be possibly kept up more than I already am on that one.
Yes, right here.
Hi, this is Katie from iHeartMedia. So my question is, Stanford's not a shabby place. You had a year there. You realized you were onto something. What was the trigger to say, I'm onto something so great that I'm going to leave after a year and I'm going to invest this, tuition money to launch this company? Like, what was that moment?
That moment is you find what you feel like you're born to do, right? And for me, I reached a certain point where I was spending all my time doing this, and I was spending my parents' money on all these courses that I wasn't going to, and it's kind of like, okay, why am I here? And I had the privilege of getting what I needed. I'm an engineer. I was in the engineering school there to be able to do this, and I hit that moment where I was very clear that this is what I wanted to do with my life. So that was it.
Elizabeth, many people in this audience, whether they're at established companies like Google and Airbnb, and are of the mentality, even if the company has been around for as long as yours, 11 years, that they are building a startup. And we have true entrepreneurs, founders in this audience. You talked about you have to be really willing to change. How did you deal with that struggle?
Yeah, my journey was one of jumping in feet first. And so I think, if you know why you're doing something and what it is that you're trying to get, then it's a question of being very, very open to failure and just, trying again and again and again until you get it, right? And so we codenamed our product, what started as that patch, the Edison, because our premise was we will fail over 1,000 times until we get this thing to work, but we will get it on the 1,001st time. And I think that mindset has really guided so much of what we've done because there's a determination to make it work no matter what, but you're not worried about whether many of those attempts fail. You're embracing it almost.
Another question? Yes, right here.
Hi, Rosalind Fox from John Deere. You talked about being in all the stores across the U.S., the Walgreens across the U.S. within the next 5 years, but are you looking at having your customers being able to do it from home?
It's a good question.
It's a great question. Yeah, it's a different world than what we're doing in the context of sort of the retail pharmacy. I think I think there's definitely applications for that, and in our own work as we've served, for example, pharmaceutical companies in the past, we would run their clinical trials to get new drugs to market, and all of that testing was done from people's homes. So I think there's some very interesting applications there.
Elizabeth has on her board 3 ex-cabinet secretaries, 2 former senators, and retired military officers at a very high level. It's a fascinating board. You still don't have any women on the board, right? Well, yeah, okay, all right, okay.
I count.
Beyond you. Is that on
Yeah.
your? Okay, that's on your list. We quoted Henry Kissinger as saying about Elizabeth, "I have seen no sign that financial gain is of any interest to her. She's like a monk." Is that a fair assessment?
He's got a great sense of humor. Yeah.
Do you care about these billions that you've made?
You know, I've always seen money as a tool, right, for being able to make a difference. And for us, we reinvest everything that we make back into our company. And we always will, because it's about being able to create better and better products to realize this vision. And so, I never would have built the company this way if it was about making money. It's about creating value, and money becomes a byproduct of being successful in creating value. And then it's a tool to reinvest in being able to continue doing that, right? And that's how we think about it.
Those are wonderful words to end.